I ran an audit of 30 plus broken outbound funnels, and in almost every single instance, the person running it was fixing the completely wrong thing, either changing the copy, switching tools, replacing sequences, or replacing infrastructure, while the actual constraint in the funnel was something else completely. We send about 3 to 4 million call emails a month on behalf of our clients and book hundreds of sales calls every single month on their sales team's calendar. And in this video, I'm gonna be showing you the exact constraint analysis framework that we run every single week to audit our clients' campaigns and generate consistent results. All right, what is constraint analysis in the first place? This is a weekly audit. At least we run it weekly. I also recommend you to run it on a weekly basis on your campaigns. We do it on a weekly basis for our clients. But it's an audit of your outbound funnel to find where results are actually breaking down, where's the constraint, where's the bottleneck in your funnel, right? Most people just guess the problem and then they attempt to fix the wrong thing, but because it's the wrong thing, they make bad decisions and they don't actually get better results, right? So it's important to understand where the exact constraint, where the exact bottleneck is in the funnel to therefore understand what to improve and then get better results by improving that bottleneck, right? So this video is going to walk you through exactly what the funnel is and how to find the right constraint in your funnel. You want to fix the first layer that is broken in the funnel before touching anything else downstream. You want to run it every single week or on a recurring basis, depending on your volume. At least I would say on a weekly basis, not just when you see a drop in results. You want to run it on a weekly basis because there's typically always something to improve or always something to fix in your funnel. Now, this is why most people get it wrong, apparently. Copy is the most visible variable. So as far as I can see, most people think it's the copy that's a constraint, while it's actually not. So it gets changed first, but a lot of the time it is not the constraint. And a lot of the time it's one of the last things that's actually likely to be the problem in the funnel, right? Most of the time, a broken layer earlier in the funnel, before copy as an example, will kill your results regardless of copy quality. So even if you change your copy, you're still going to get the same results. This happens quite frequently. Rearrange sequences as an example, while your domains and your infrastructure is burned or blacklisted, is not going to improve results, because if your domains are blacklisted, you're simply not going to land in the primary box of your prospects regardless. So that's not going to fix the problem, right? If you change your offer when the real problem is that nobody's even seeing your emails because you have bad deliverability as an example as well, that will not improve things, and that is not the actual constraint. Now, there's 8 layers inside of the outbound funnel that you want to check in the following order, right? There's volume, there's bounce rate, there's reply rate, there's positive reply rate, meeting booking rate, show up rate to the calls, qualification rate, and close rate as well. Now, if you have a 2 call close sales process, you also want to include show up rate to the first call, qualification rate, and then you want to do layer 8, which is going to be show up rate to the second call, and then close rate eventually, right? Maybe even booking rate to the second call, and something like that. But generally, we try to keep it very simple. If our clients have a 1 call close sales process, and we just try to do something like this, where you have meeting booking rate, show up rate, qualification rate, and then close rate, right? Now, layer 1 is volume. So here's what you need to check, right? If you're not setting enough volume, then everything else doesn't matter, right? It might just be that your statistics are very good and you just need to send more volume, right? You're going to be able to understand from this training if your statistics are actually good. I'm going to walk you through some examples and some statistics that you can expect in your campaigns. But essentially, if you're not sending enough volume, and at this point, if you're not sending in hundreds of emails per day, if not thousands of emails per day, you're probably not sending enough volume. So, but long story short, if you're not sending enough volume, nothing else really matters, and you just need to send more emails, right? Now, here's what you need to check, right? You might have the infrastructure that's necessary to be able to send your expected necessary volume, but something might be wrong in your tech, in your sequencer, in your email accounts that prevents you from actually sending the volume that you expect, right? So you want to check, is your sequencer actually sending the volume you expect, right? Are campaigns even active and running, right? Or are they paused, or were they paused because of high bounce rate? Some sequencers, as an example, they pause your campaigns automatically because when they get high bounce rate, right? Or any accounts disconnected. In that case, you want to reconnect them immediately. Or sending limits set correctly on each account. Do you have enough accounts to hit your target send volume in the first place, right? Those are all questions that you need to ask and answer to understand what is the value you can actually send that you're expected to send. If volume is wrong, like I said, nothing else matters. Also, if you don't have enough volume, you're not going to have enough data to draw any conclusions from, right? You're not going to be able to test, to split test things and understand what works best. Obviously, if you have disconnected accounts or any problems on the email infrastructure or sequencer sort of things, that is pretty common. That's pretty common actually. And so you want to make sure you fix those problems immediately. Pull the sequencer dashboard to fix it, compare the actual send versus what you expected to send, reconnect any disconnected inboxes immediately, and calculate the required sends backwards from your meeting per month target or leads per month target or close deals per month target. I have another video I'll link somewhere in here that walks through our entire process and specifically the funnel math. That's going to be interesting to you to understand how to calculate this, how to reverse engineer your volume based on your goals. This video is going to walk through the funnel math that we run for all of our clients and the process that we use to send hundreds of thousands of cold emails per month and book hundreds of sales calls per month for our clients. So I highly recommend you to check that out as well. If you don't have enough volume, obviously you want to scale horizontally. So you want to add more inboxes, more domains, more admin panels. If your current accounts, if your current infrastructure is not supporting enough volume, right? Do not scale your volume by simply sending more emails per email account. That's a good way to destroy your deliverability. That's called vertical scaling. You want to do horizontal scaling where you actually increase the number of email accounts that you have, the number of domains, the number of admin panels, in general, the number of infrastructure you have to be able to send more volume, but without increasing the volume per inbox or per domain. Layer number 2 is bounce rate. So if you have a high bounce rate, like higher than 30 to 4%, it's generally a red flag. A high bounce rate might indicate a list quality problem. So it might tell you that your emails were simply not validated correctly, right? You might be sending to wrong, invalid, inexisting, non-active anymore inboxes. Your domains might also be blacklisted if you're getting a high bounce rate. And again, you want to look at this in this order, right? So is your list validated, right? Yes or no. If it's not, then definitely validate it first and then check again your bounce rate. If it's validated, so if it's a yes, then you want to check are your domains blacklisted, right? If your domains are blacklisted, you could be getting a high bounce rate. If they're not, then check the following thing, right? So check if it's a tenant block on Azure inboxes. This means if you're sending using Microsoft Azure inboxes, there is a problem that could happen sometimes when you're sending too quickly, which is a tenant block, right? You generally want to ask your provider, your inbox vendor to look into tenant blocks if you see this could be the problem. But again, that could be an issue if you're using Azure Microsoft inboxes. Or pretty recent, if you're sending to Mimecast leads, that might also be a problem and that may lead to high bounce rate, surely leads to high bounce rate. Generally, we see that when we are sending to leads, to inboxes that are using Mimecast, which is, you can check whether they're using Mimecast by using some MX provider tool, MX lookup tool. And if you're sending to Mimecast leads, that generally leads to a high bounce rate and it basically destroys your deliverability and destroys your infrastructure. So you don't want to do that. Right now, you definitely want to exclude Mimecast leads from your campaigns. If you have a consistent high bounce rate, that will damage your domain reputation over time. That will destroy your deliverability. So you want to basically just make sure you have a good bounce rate below 2%, below 3%, so you don't cook your email infrastructure. Same thing with the verified lead lists. If you don't verify your lead lists and you just load them directly into your campaigns, that will just accelerate the rate at which you burn your infrastructure. Here's how you fix it. You want to verify every single list before loading it into your sequencer using something like million verifier, zero bounce, or bounce ban. Check active domains on MX Toolbox for any blacklists. If they're blacklisted on Surbl, which is SURBL, then you want to replace your domains because it's generally very hard to get them out of that blacklist. Infrastructure that has been sitting for 6+ months, you might want to consider rotating it, replacing infrastructure, purchasing a buffer, because generally, if you've been sending for 6+ months, it could be burned. Again, depends on the offer, depends on the spam complaint ratios, depends on the engagement rate. But if you've been sending for 6 months, I would recommend you to just have some buffer infrastructure to use when you actually need to replace the infrastructure. It might not be a constraint right now, but it could happen soon. If you have new domains, you want to make sure they run through a proper warm-up period before going into full volume. And as well, if you have new domains, wait 30 days before sending campaigns, because right now there is a 30-day blacklist that you want to consider, right? If you purchase domains today, you want to wait 30 days because they're going to be in this 30-day blacklist. And after that, you were able to launch campaigns because they're going to be automatically removed from the 30-day blacklist, right? By the way, if you'd like us to implement this exact system into your business to generate tens, if not hundreds of sales calls every single month for your sales team, click the first link in the description below and apply to work with us. But for now, let's get back to the video. Layer number 3 is the reply rate. So here's what you need to check, right? You want to remove all the replies to see the actual human engagements, the actual human replies, right? Remove out of office, automatic responses, all of that stuff. Just consider the human replies. You want to understand what percentage of leads contacted are getting a real human response. So your actual human reply rate calculated as unique human replies over leads contacted, right? That's what you need to calculate, and that's your human reply rate or unique human reply rate. Here's how to read it. If you have a low human reply rate, it could be, this is actually very hard to understand sometimes. It could be a copy problem, it could be a list problem, or an infrastructure problem, right? This is where copy starts becoming relevant, but only once the layers above, like the bounce rate and the volume, are clean, meaning that you couldn't find any constraints on those layers, right? So this could be an email infrastructure problem as well. So I'm going to show you how to detect that. Here's how you can fix it. You want to actually confirm that your list is your ideal customer or client profile, right? This is actually very, very common. I see this all the time on consulting calls where people just export a list from Apollo, ZoomInfo, or really any other tool, and it's just like 60% unqualified leads that don't actually fit their ideal customer profile. So this is very, very common. So you want to run your list through something like Claude or any LLMs to basically tell you whether your list is qualified from an ideal customer profile perspective. You also obviously want to tell Claude who your actual ideal customer profile is in the first place, so it's able to check properly, right? It could also happen at the company level where you have a bunch of companies that are completely unqualified based on your ideal customer profile. Now, given that you have a list of actual ideal clients or ideal prospects, then you want to run a spam word audit on the copy. You want to make sure you're not using any spam words. Check the sender reputation as well, domain age, DMARC, DKM, SPF setup, to make sure your email infrastructure is set up correctly. And then look at which segments are replying and which are not, right? A lot of the time I see, people just see like a couple of campaigns. They have a couple of campaigns. They see on average 1% reply rate among these two campaigns. But then one campaign has a 0.2% reply rate and the other campaign is a 1.8% reply rate. So the problem is not on average the reply rate, because that would be like a 1% as an example. But the problem is that underperforming campaign has 0.2% reply rate. So this is one example where you might have different segments or different campaigns. One could be outperforming the other, but you might just see like your average reply rate. You might think that that's low, right? But you fail to understand that there's a few different campaigns or a few different segments, and the reply rate is not consistent across all of these segments, right? As an example, with enterprise or certain segments, expect lower reply rates, right? They have certain spam filters and more sophisticated spam filters. So it is hard to land in primary inbox. And as a result, you're going to see lower reply rates. If you're sending to Microsoft recipients as well, so Outlook inboxes, you also want to expect lower reply rates. We've seen this for over a year and a half at this point, where deliverability to Outlook leads is just simply tougher than to Google leads and other providers. So you want to expect this as well. Expect lower reply rates. As an example, sometimes I see people running campaigns to a certain target market, and like 70% of that list is Outlook recipients, only 30% is Google and other providers. And then they see like a very low reply rate. Well, the problem is not your messaging, the problem is not your copy. The problem is that most of your list is simply Outlook leads, and you should just expect lower reply rates, but that they don't see it because it is in the same campaign, right? You have all the leads in the same campaign. They just see the average reply rate, which is low on average, but it is not the messaging or copy problem. It's just that you're sending to Microsoft leads and there's simply a lower deliverability rate to those recipients right now. It could also be copy fingerprinting. So if it's copy fingerprinting, you will see that because you get very low reply rate. It tends to drop pretty much overnight, so pretty fast. If you have copy fingerprinting, change your copy 2 to 3 times. You want to use actually different scripts, not just change a bunch of words, and test whether that gives you a higher reply rate. Sometimes it could be that your copy was just simply fingerprinted and you just need to change the copy and then test new scripts, right? Sometimes for some of our high volume clients, we've seen that the signature will literally get fingerprinted, like the company name and the signature will get fingerprinted. And so we had to remove the signature, remove the company name from the signature. And then that, brought us back to the original reply rates. Generally happens for like very high volume campaigns in hundreds of thousands of cold emails per month that your signature could be fingerprinted, especially if you're using it. If you're using the same signature over and over again, the same sender names, the same company name with no spin tags and signature, the same address as well. If you're using the phone number in the signature, that also gets fingerprinted pretty easily. And so you want to change that as well and see whether it makes a difference. If none of the above solves really the problem, that you might just need to replace your email infrastructure, right? It could be a deliverability or an email infrastructure problem. So you might need to replace your email infrastructure, which is why I always recommend keeping a buffer, right? So when you set up your new email infrastructure, always keep a buffer. It's 30 to 50% of your actual sending capacity. So let's say you're sending 100K, you want to keep 30K in the buffer that you're not actually using, so that when you need to replace your infrastructure again, at least you already have that 30K that you can use to deploy immediately. And you don't have to wait weeks for the new infrastructure to be set up and warmed up. Layer number 4 is the positive reply rate. Here's what you need to check, right? Out of everyone who replied, how many people are actually interested, right? Versus objecting, asking to be removed, unsubscribe requests, or simply replying negatively with a not interested response. Here's how you can read this, right? And what this tells you. A low positive reply rate with a good or decent overall reply rate or human reply rate, it might just be an offer targeting or copy problem, right? Where basically, or it might also be a list problem sometimes, where you are reaching the right type of audience most of the time. Sometimes you're reaching the wrong audience and you still get high reply rate because people just tend to reply, no thanks, not interested, not subscribe. Sometimes it happens, but it could be an offer messaging or copy problem, right? Or simply an offer problem, right? Now, in those instances where you get like a good reply rate and a low positive reply rate, you want to focus on your copy, you want to focus on your offer. And again, very rarely the targeting, but sometimes it is the case, right? I'll show you this example of a client that I had a consultation call with, and basically they showed me these were the campaigns that they run previously with an agency. They used to get like 2% reply rate and a positive reply rate of 22%, right? Which means that out of 100 people contacted, 2 would reply, and out of 100 replies, 22 or 23 were positive, right? Which is typically very good stats, right? I would say pretty good stats. And then they showed me the campaigns that they run themselves after firing this agency, right? So they would get a reply rate of 0.37% and a positive reply rate of 19%, right? Now, the problem here is clearly that the 22% positive reply rate is actually very similar to the 19.05% positive reply rate. So the biggest constraint here is the reply rate that went from 2% to 0.37%, right? This is the biggest constraint. And it was, in this case, an infrastructure problem after diving a little deeper into their specific situation. But what they thought is that he thought it was a copy problem, right? So he started switching up the copy, couldn't get better results. But in this case, it was not a copy problem because the reply rate was the problem. It was not the positive reply rate. So what that tells you is that when people are responding, they're responding with interest. So that means that your offer is good, your copy is good, it leads to positive responses and engagement. So that was not the problem. The problem was getting to the primary inbox and actually showing these emails to the right people in the first place. That was the constraint. That was the reply rate, not a positive reply rate. All right, here's how you can fix it. You want to read the negative replies carefully. That's going to give you a lot of information as far as like what people are actually saying and what people like, what the objections are, what the questions are, why people are not interested. Sometimes they will tell you, hey, this was like completely irrelevant, I'm not the right prospect for you, and so on and so forth. And that will reveal a lot of things, right? If it's just a not interested reply with no reason, sometimes it might just be that people are responding with not interested or unsubscribe, and it's totally normal. A lot of the time, it could be that the value was not clear if the targeting was correct, right? So if the targeting was correct, if you're reaching the right ICP, it might just be if they're responding with not interested, it might just be that they're not interested in the offer, you're not committing the offer properly, and your messaging might not be clear, as an example, right? So you might need to lead with a smaller ask. Sometimes is that you use the problems that you use a CTA, call to action, that's very high friction, like you're asking for a call immediately, where essentially it's just a very high friction ask. And so you might want to ask for something smaller, a lower friction ask, or you might want to test a different angle, completely different angle, or a different offer itself, right? Different messaging, different position. And there's so many things you could test here to try to improve your positive reply rate, right? And then as well, obviously check if your list is actually correct, it's relevant, and fits your ideal customer profile. Now, layer number 5 is the meeting booking rate. So this means that you're getting volume, you're getting enough volume. This means you're not getting huge bounce rates, you're getting good reply rates, and you're getting pretty good positive reply rates. So this, if you're getting here, it means that you're getting positive replies, but you're not able to convert them into enough booked meetings, or you would like to get more booked meetings out of those positive replies, which is totally fair and, happens quite frequently, right? Now, this basically, you want to check out of the positive replies that you receive, how many do they actually book, right? How many of them actually book a call? Generally, you want to look at a 16 to 25, 30% booking rate here. If you have a booking rate that's lower than 16%, generally it is a bottleneck, it is the bottleneck, and you want to look into this constraint and then fix it, right? Now, here's a few things that you want to check as far as the booking rate. If your booking rate is too low, how quickly is the team responding to positive replies? Do you have an inbox manager responding to positive replies promptly? Are we responding within 15 minutes, or are replies, is your inbox manager or whoever is sending these replies taking hours, if not days, to reply to these people? That makes a huge difference. What CTA are you using your email scripts, right? Sometimes you might want to use, you might have changed your CTA to something super low friction that you get a ton of positive responses, but so few of these actually convert into meetings. And it's not necessarily an inbox management problem, but it's that your CTA was super low friction, was so low friction that, so many people reply positively, but, the commitment of these people is just very low. And therefore it is harder for them to move and to convert to the next step, which is booking a call with you, right? It's totally something that happens. The softer the CTA, the harder it's going to be to book the call. The harder the CTA, which means, the closer the CTA is to direct call ask, where you're actually asking for a call immediately, the easier it is to book that prospect, because the positive reply, the people who reply positively reply, hey, I want to book a call. Obviously, in that case, it's very easy to get that prospect to book a call with you. So you want to consider the CTA, the meeting booking rate, as well as the positive reply rate together, because the CTA you're using will affect your meeting booking rate a ton. Now, here's how you can read it. If you have a low booking rate, like I said, might be a CTA problem. But if someone said yes, so someone said they're interested and the response to 48 hours or even just more than an hour to respond back, it is definitely a speed-to-lead problem. You want to fix that first and then see if there's any constraint once you fix that, right? So you want to reply ideally within 15 minutes. We've seen that replying within 5 minutes led to a 30% booking rate, 29 to 30% booking rate, and then replying to the same leads, same offer, same client, same messaging, same everything else. But we replied after 20 minutes. So in, within between 20 and 30 minutes, that led to an actually 16% booking rate. So a huge difference in the booking rate just with the speed to lead. So you want to reply as quickly as possible. Set up notifications on Slack or email for new positive replies you receive, so you can get back to them, or your team can get back to them as quickly as possible. That being said, you also want to keep in mind the booking link. When you are sending replies and you want to book those people on a call, make sure that your reply follows best practices, such as the scheduling link needs to be in the reply. You also want to manually propose times and dates for the call in the reply, so that essentially maximizes your conversion rate to book those prospects on a call with you. Now, here's how you can run the entire analysis, right? You can run it every single week or every few days if you're sending a very high amount of volume. We typically run it every single week, but sometimes for some of our highest volume clients, we actually run it multiple times a week, right? We want to start layer 1 every single time and work down in order. Basically, we want to check the boxes, right? Is the volume the constraint? Is the bounce rate constraint? Is the reply rate constraint? Is the positive reply rate constraint? Or is the booking rate constraint? And then moving forward, you actually ideally want to understand whether, is the show up rate the constraint, that you're not getting enough, show up calls? Is the qualification rate, or the calls, the prospects unqualified on the call? Or is the close rate constraint? At the end of the day, you also want to keep this in mind. In this video, we just went through the cold email related, let's say, statistics, but obviously you also want to keep in mind show rate, qualification rate, and close rate to actually turn those replies, all of those booked meetings into actual closed deals for your business. You want to fix only that constraint that you found before moving on. So fix it and then run the analysis the following week or the following period to see if the fix worked. And then if so, you want to look at the following constraint, right? So you don't check the next one down and then you repeat until all layers are healthy and you have an healthy funnel with good statistics and good metrics alongside the entire funnel, right? Big note here, make sure you have large enough test sizes to be able to run this analysis, this constraint analysis. Obviously, if you're sending 100 emails per day, it's going to be very tough for you to actually change something and then see the results immediately, because it's going to take a lot of time for you to actually see the data coming from the changes you made. So you want to make sure you have large enough test sizes as well. All right, that was constraint analysis. If you run this yourself, you can totally get awesome results because the logic is pretty straightforward. The hard part is just doing it consistently on a weekly basis across all of your campaigns, while you need to also focus on everything else in your business, right? So you've got two options right now. If you're running outbound yourself and you just need email infrastructure to be handled so that layer is never the constraint again, go check out ScaleMail in the link in the description. We set up and manage your entire email infrastructure, domains, inboxes, deliverability, entire setup. So you don't have to worry about whether the DKIM or DMARC or the DNS technical records were set up properly. If you want our team to actually handle the entire outbound system for you, while all you have to do is take the calls with qualified prospects, click the first link in the description below and book a strategy call to apply to work with us. Otherwise, you can go watch this other video where I discuss this exact system that we use to book 10 plus sales calls every single day for multiple of our clients. See you there.